Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making the Bambi bag. Let's get right into it. So the first step, the main and the front panel. I'm going to draw the line for the top of the bag using the main interfacing, the pattern piece B as guide. I'm going to join those points with my ruler to make the line, and then I'm going to cut on this line. And then fold. I'm going to fold on the line, not cut. I'm going to fold on the line and then to form the shape of the bag. I'm going to draw a line 3-4 inch or 0.75 inch from all the edges on the main panel, and of course on the wrong side. Now fuse my main interfacing on the wrong side of the main panel. Okay, at this point we want to fold all the raw edges to meet the edge of the interfacing. And the reason why we are folding it to the edge is because we don't want the thick interfacing to be in the seam allowance. If it is in the seam allowance, it might be very hard to sew the bag together later. Now you notice that the corners will form some V shapes, and we are going to cut that off later. So it's what the bag will later look like. I'm cutting off the V shapes now. Then we'll repeat the same thing for the front panel. Now the next step, the lock panel, we're going to transfer the small 3/8 inch mark and the magnetic snap mark. That's if you're using the big magnetic snap. All these instructions are in the pattern to either use the magnetic snap as on your main lock, on your lock panel, or to use a back lock, depending on the one you're going for. If it's the magnetic snap, you have to transfer the mark at this point, but in this tutorial I'm using a bag lock, so I'm not going to transfer any mark. So I'm also going to draw a 3-4 inch line on the long edges to that 3/8 mark. I'm going to fold the short edges right sides together, and then I'll take this to the sewing machine and sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then I'm going to trim down the seam, or I can notch it as well. And I will fold the long edges that I drew the 3-4 inch line on earlier. I'm going to fold it to meet that edge. You can use your double-sided tape to do this. You can also use your glue. I'm using glue in this video. So now I'm going to turn it to the right side. I use something sharp to push out those edges. At this point, I'm going to put my lock interfacing inside the lock panel, as I am doing right now. The lock interfacing will be only where we have the raw edges, even on the wrong side, because we folded to the wrong side. So it's going to be within those folds. So I'm going to clip this in place. I'm going to clip it wrong sides together, and then I will take it to the sewing machine. And the sewing, I'm going to sew it 1/8 on the long and the curved edges. So I'm leaving the short straight edge. I will sew it with 1/8 and with 1/4 inch seam allowance. So it's going to be like double stitching on that panel. I'm going to set this on my main panel 2 inch from the bottom edge and then centered. And then I will also sew it with a 1/8 and then 1/4 inch seam allowance to secure it in place. Now we're moving to the outer slip pocket, the third step, and I'm going to fuse or glue my outer slip pocket interfacing to one of the slip pockets. And then I'm going to take the second slip pocket panel and hold it right sides together with the one that I have interfaced. I'll clip this in place and take it to the sewing machine, then sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now I'm going to stop 1/2 inch from the beginning and the end of that edge. Then I will open to the right side, still clip it as well so that I can have everything lay nicely. And then I will also take this to the sewing machine and top stitch with a 1/8 inch seam allowance, the same way, starting and stopping 1/2 inch to the edges. So I've done that, and right now I'm going to fold the panel that has the interfacing. I'm going to fold it to cover the interfacing. That is, the interfacing is going to be in the seam allowance. And the reason why we can confidently fold this in the seam allowance is because we are using a very light interfacing. It's not going to give us any problem, unlike the one with the main panel. That one is like very thick, and it can lead to like problems if it is in the main interfacing, in the seam allowance I meant. So after this is done, I'm going to use maybe glue or double-sided tape to hold the two panels wrong sides together, and then I will trim off the excess from the other panel. I'm going to trim it off in such a way that it is 1/8 inch shorter than the one on the right side, because I don't want it to be showing from the right side. So it's going to be like this. And then I'm going to set these on the main panel. So it's going to be 3/4 inch from the bottom and then centered. And I'm going to sew these with 1/8 inch down one side across the bottom and then up the other side edge. Okay, so we are in step 4, undo panel. I'm going to draw a 3/8 inch line on the short edges of the two handle panels, and then I'm going to fuse my handle interfacing at the center of the handle panels. I'm using glue in this video. You can also use glue, or you can decide to fuse it. At this point, I'm going to fold the edges of the handle interfacing, the long edges now, to meet the edge of the edges of the handle panels to meet the edge of the interfacing. I also don't want the interfacing to be in the seam allowance, because this interfacing is also a very thick one. I'm going to repeat the same step for the other handle interfacing and the other handle panel. I'm going to leave the short edges for now, because shortly I'm going to be clipping those short edges right sides together, like so. So I'm going to sew these on the 3/8 inch line, and then I'm going to cut just a slant cut on those edges, like so, and then I will open the edges and then use double-sided tape or glue to hold it down like this. Now I'm going to fold the remaining raw edges to the center, following how it has been, from when I started folding it. So just folding it down this way. So this is it. I'm going to turn this to the wrong sides together. Then I'm going to use my clip to hold the sides, and then take it to the sewing machine. Then sew the long edges with 1/8 inch seam allowance. I'm going to set this on my main panel on the top edge now. So I'm going to hold it like so. Step 5, connect the connector panel. On the wrong side of the connector panel, we're going to draw a line down the center of the long edge. Then we're going to fold it to the center line using double-sided tape or glue to hold them in place. Then we're going to transfer this the mark on pattern piece G to the side panel, but before then I'm going to interface my side panel with the side panel interfacing using glue or double-sided tape, or I can also fuse it in place depending on the type of the interfacing. So after this, I'm going to take the pattern piece G and then transfer the mark for the connector to the side panel. I'm going to cut through this mark. This mark is 1.5 inch from the top edge, and then I'm going to insert my connector, the finished connector, right side up and up to like 0.5 inch. Then I'm going to install my D-ring into the D-ring connector. and then use reverse to hold that in place. So now we move to the side panel and the base panel, and the first step is to fold the edges of the side panel to meet the interfacing, as I am doing in this video. So I'm going to cut the edges that pokes up. Now this is the two finished side panels. I'm also going to do almost the same thing for the base panel. So I'm going to draw a 3-4 inch line on all the edges of the base panel, and then I'm going to fuse or glue my side interfacing on the wrong side of the side panel. So then I'll fold the edges to meet the edge of the interfacing, as I am doing in this video. Notice the four corners are going to form a small V shape. And then I'll take my scissors and cut these poking vinyls away. So this is what the side panel, the base panel, looks like at this point. Now take the side panel and then hold the short edges of the base panel with the bottom center of the side panel, wrong sides together, and then I'll clip them in place like so. I'll take this to the sewing machine and then sew with 1/8 inch seam allowance on that the bottom center of the side panel. So I'm not sewing the whole thing. I'm only sewing around the bottom center of the side panel. So you can see what I'm saying. I'm not sewing the legs of the side panel at all. So now we move to step 7, assemble the exterior, and I'm going to take the finished gusset and hold one side, wrong sides together with the sides and bottom of the main panel, and then I'm going to clip them in place. Now notice that I'll clip the legs of the side panel, ensuring that it's aligned to the short edge of the base panel, as I am doing in this video. So this is what I'm talking about. The leg of the side panel is going to be right beside the short edge of the base panel, like so, and it has to sit next to each other. Now I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and then sew with 1/8 inch seam allowance. So this is what it looks like at this point. And then I'll repeat the same step for the front panel, to sew the front panel to the side and the base. So I'm using a cylinder and machine, but if you do not have that, you could use your flatbed machine, just that you'll be sewing from the side with the side panel facing up. So after this, you install your magnetic snap, the female end of your magnetic snap on the front panel, or your bag lock, depending on what you're using. This is the time you do your slip and zipper pocket. The video for that is linked in the description below. So this is what your slip pocket looks like. This is what your zipper pocket looks like once it's done. Step 10, assemble the lining panel. So we're going to draw a 3-4 inch line on the long edge, the longest long edge of the flap lining and the side edges, and then we fuse or glue our flap lining interfacing on the wrong side of it. as I am doing in this video. So after this, we're going to use the mark indicated on pattern piece L to install the male part of our magnetic snap. Now these are the two magnetic snap, the smaller ones. Those are the ones you will install on this panel. So after the magnetic snaps are in place, we're going to fold the edge of the flap lining to meet the edge of the interface head. Now the corners, the two top corners are going to poke up, then you're going to trim that off. Now I will take the zipper pocket, the lining panel that has the zipper pocket, and then I'm going to set these flap lining right sides together with the top edge of the lining panel and centered. Then I'm going to clip that in place. Now sew this with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Open the seam and then press it towards the lining and give it a 1/8 inch top stitching. Now we're going to take the second lining panel and then align them right sides together. We'll clip those in place, and then we're also going to sew these starting from the top with 3/8 inch and gradually increase the seam to 5/8 inch towards the center. And then we're also going to sew the bottom edge with 5/8 inch seam allowance. This will help reduce the bulk in the lining when we are done. So now we're going to match the side seams, the corresponding side seams, right sides together, and then we'll sew them with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Now we're going to fold the top edge of the lining to meet the line we drew from the beginning. So this line, you can press it in place, you can use your double-sided tape to hold it. That will depend on the fabric you're using. So now we assemble the bag. Now to assemble the bag, we're going to push or tuck the lining into the exterior, wrong sides together, aligning all the edges, and then we'll clip the flap in place. So after this, we are going to sew around the flap with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Now note that we are sewing only the flap for now. we're not sewing the top of the sides and the top of the front yet. We are leaving that for now. Okay, now I'm installing my male magnetic my male bag lock. However, this should have been done in a previous step, but it does not affect anything. So if you are following the pattern and you have already installed yours in a previous step, you have done the right thing. And if it's now that you're just installing it as well, it is still correct. So at this point, we're going to install the two small female magnetic snap on the front of the bag. Now we're going to use you can follow the measurement given in the pattern to install it, or you can use your already installed male magnetic snap to also install it, or even check if the measurement given from the pattern follows what you have on the flap, because it has to match. It really does has to match, because there are two magnetic snap, and if one is out of place, it's going to definitely affect how the bag closes or covers. Now we're going to install the female bag lock using the already installed male bag lock. Now the measurement for this will be very tricky, so it is not given. It is better to use the already installed male bag lock, because bag locks are very different from each other. Some will be small, some are big, different position to also place them. So you'll be using the already installed male magnetic male bag lock to install the female bag lock. Now the bag lock is done, and I'm going to cover it now. In the pattern we used magnetic snap, a bigger magnetic snap, and you can use magnetic snap, you can use bag lock. Now we're going to sew the top of the bag. Now this could be tricky if you do not have a cylinder arm machine or a frame arm machine. If you do not have either of this, you could draw a straight line on the top of the front and the side panel where you're supposed to sew. Just draw a straight line, maybe a 1-4 line, and then on that top edge you could stitch it to close them up. Now you're going to have to add stitch on the straight line. Some of the testers actually did this, and some were able to sew with a freehand machine. Now this is the time to do your long strap. The video for the long strap is linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and bye.